My name is Erica Heiss. I serve as the National Director for the Congressional Award Foundation. It is my absolute pleasure to be here joining from the Washington, D.C. area. I'm actually in Northern Virginia today, and we are leading an incredible panel here to discuss all things entrepreneurship. We have been working with Intuit, a key partner in our financial literacy programming for young people. And we are absolutely delighted to be joined by key leaders and small business council members today to share all things in how they have built their own businesses. And we want to make sure we're answering questions. I thank you all for submitting questions in advance. So it gave us a little time to prepare, but let us know what you're thinking. I already see the chat kind of blowing up, and we'll have some key Congressional Award staffers helping to get all these things answered and providing some additional information along the way. We all know how important financial literacy is for all of us as we grow through this journey of thinking about starting a business, preparing for our future, wherever our journeys may lead. I think there is an overall critical importance around financial literacy, which we will be talking about today. Our goal is to share some really critical resources, to answer key questions, to share experiences, to make sure that when you're leaving this webinar today, that you have more information than from where you started, and you have an understanding of what resources the Congressional Award is providing, what Intuit is providing, and perhaps some other little key gems that you'll be able to take away after this hour. So once again, welcome everyone, and it is my pleasure to welcome our first speaker, Dave Zazada from Intuit. He is the VP of Education and Corporate Responsibility, and he is really key in the wonderful work that Intuit is doing around financial literacy. Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Erica. Appreciate it. And also welcome to everyone who's joining this particular webinar. And first, I really just wanted to congratulate you all for your pursuit of a congressional award. I mean, it obviously takes an awful lot of effort in order to be able to achieve what you're striving to achieve. And it just always impresses me as I hear stories about young people who are pursuing this. So, really the dedication and commitment it takes is just so significant. And you all really should feel super proud of yourselves, regardless of what stage you're at in your pursuit of an award. So, really congratulations to you all. So for those who aren't familiar with Intuit, we're a global financial technology company. We have over 100 million customers around the world that are using our products, which you may have heard of some of them: TurboTax, QuickBooks, Credit Karma, MailChimp. You may see some of them advertised on TV. But for over 40 years, we've been really focused on helping our customers, which include both individuals and small business owners, really achieve financial confidence and ultimately put as much money in their pockets as possible. And we've really taken that experience over those 40 years to helping our customers achieve financial independence, to ultimately then help the next generation become financially literate as well. And so if that is your goal, then that's why we are here. We're really here to help you. And we know that becoming financially literate is really, really important because research tells us so. Research actually indicates that by becoming financially literate, this will result in your having increased savings, your credit scores are going to go up, and you'll have an increased ability to manage credit cards. And depending on where you're at right now, if you're a teenager and you're still in high school, maybe some of that really is already important to you, and maybe you're just understanding that, okay, that's probably going to be important to me as soon as I graduate and move on to my next chapter. But I guarantee you it will become important. As a father of two kids that are kind of near your ages, I can tell you from watching them in both successes and failures in terms of managing money, that the more financially literate you can be, the better chance you're going to have of achieving your goals. The fact is 75% of teens today actually lack confidence in their knowledge of personal finance. So maybe some of you feel that way, maybe some of you don't, but we're on a mission to ultimately help all those individuals who are currently struggling with it. So that's a little bit about Intuit and kind of what we're doing around financial literacy and why we care about it. But I know that this particular webinar is really focused on entrepreneurship, business skills, et cetera. So, I thought I'd share a few thoughts on what are some of the key business skills that are necessary to build a strong foundation for success as an entrepreneur in particular. So, if you're interested in being an entrepreneur, you need to know that it's really critical to have strong financial skills. So this builds on my comments from just a moment ago about just initially becoming financially literate. So you may have heard a stat that, over 50% of small businesses fail after 5 years. That's really a staggering percentage and a sobering percentage. Well, you may not know that the number one reason for that many businesses ultimately failing is because the leader of the business doesn't have strong financial skills. And in particular, they typically don't have good skills around how to manage money. So they run out of cash. And besides having strong financial skills, there's really other business skills that you're going to need in order to be successful if your goal is ultimately to be an entrepreneur. So you need to be able to have great skills at problem solving. You need to be able to adapt to changes because they're going to come at you from all different directions, and you really need to have grit. So these also happen, by the way, to be key skills that you'll need just to be successful in life as well as you get older. So now the good news is, although you may not have realized it at the time, when you were going through the pandemic, that was actually a great opportunity to build a lot of these skills, in particular, building grit. There's really not a generation that has had the opportunity to build as much grit as you all have because of what you've gone through with the pandemic. So you already have a great base of skills to build off of as you're trying to become successful, with your business skills. So now I get asked, quite a bit, what type of resources do you have for individuals your ages, at Intuit if they're looking to ultimately become an entrepreneur or increase their finance skills. So, ultimately, if you're looking to build your personal or entrepreneurial skills, a tool you all have available to you is called Intuit for Education. So if you've not already used it, what you're going to find if you go into Intuit for Education is there's a couple of courses. There's a personal finance course and there's an entrepreneurial finance course. And what's nice about it is you can use the content that's really most applicable to you, what's most interesting to you. You don't need to complete the full course. You can go in and say, hey, I really want to focus on understanding how to budget, or I don't really quite understand this credit thing. What does that mean? And you can focus on just going through the content around credit. But the content is super engaging. It's built for kids who are in high school. So it includes a lot of very short videos, kind of TikTok style. There's a lot of interactive activities. There's simulations, there's games. So it's not just the kind of content that you go in and you're just reading a lot of stuff and just learning the concepts. Intuit for Education was really designed to help kids not only become financially literate, but also financially capable and confident. And you do that by actually applying the concepts through things like simulations and games, et cetera. Now, there's actually going to be a demo of Intuit for Education if you haven't seen it yet. There's going to be a demo of that in January. I think it's January 21st. So I would encourage you all to kind of note that and put that on your calendar. That'd be a great way just to kind of get to know what that content is. So please be on the lookout for that. But those are some of the resources that Intuit is offering and some of the reasons why we care so much about this topic and about you and the next generation. So with that, Erica, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you for all that information. We'll be sharing the links to make sure that we can all access Intuit for Education, and also on our Congressional Award page and the module that's available to all of our participants, because as you know, you can be counting all of these hours toward the Congressional Award as you are working toward your medal. We've had a lot of young people post right now in the chat what some of their goals are, anywhere from saving money for something specific, or making their Etsy business a little more successful, understanding how to invest, when to take risks, wanting to buy their first house. So we're really happy to see where everybody is in their journey in all of their entrepreneurial endeavors. So thank you for sharing. Please continue to share. Dave, just a couple of quick questions for you, if you don't mind. For you personally, and I think here at the Congressional Award, we always encourage to continue learning, always be a beginner at something, always trying to get better at something. So in all of our entrepreneurial and financial literacy programming and education, where are you getting your information? Do you have a book or a podcast or someone that you listen to on any regular basis that you think has just been really helpful for you personally?
You know, I honestly always try to have a learning mindset. I'm always on the lookout for any source where I can get credible information on this topic and other entrepreneurship topics or finance topics. So, the reality is you have to be a little bit careful where you're going and looking for information on topics like personal finance or entrepreneurial finance. So, we did some research on this actually at Intuit, and we were expecting to find that for teenagers who are looking for information on finance, that we assumed that like the source that they were most likely going to cite would be like TikTok or some other social channels as well, and actually didn't find that to be the case. And for those that did, they actually expressed concern that the information they were getting was truly credible. And so, I know different than some, very smart younger people really look for credible sources in terms of just, organizations that have been around for a long time, like an Intuit or others like Intuit, who have a lot of data that justifies either the advice that they're giving or the information that they're giving to help somebody improve.
So be cautious, right? Be mindful around where you're getting your information and your advice. Understood.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, but just to build on that, I'm sorry,
yeah.
is I think the most important thing though is not to wait. That, you all are at such a great age to start building a good base foundation, of just financial literacy, that you will be so much farther ahead of your peers, and even many adults, by just leaning in now and taking advantage of the resources available to you in school or outside of school. Because it's super clear that those who graduate high school financially literate, there's research that shows that you have a better chance of managing your money more effectively for a lifetime of financial success if you start early. So I would just encourage you to do that now before you start making financial decisions that can impact you long term.
Great advice. Great advice. So we're leaning in with a head start here. Two quick products that I know I use and we use at the Congressional Award, TurboTax and QuickBooks. So we're very familiar with those products. And we thank you for all the wonderful work that Intuit is doing and what you are providing for young people in getting started. As you said, the earlier the better, right? So we're in a really good place right now. Dave, thank you so much for your time today. And you were talking about getting good information. So we're about to get some really, really good information from Intuit Small Business Council members who are joining us here for today's panel. So this is a great segue. So thank you again, Dave. We are going to turn things over to our panelists where we're going to answer your questions. And I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, but I'm going to start with Leah, who was actually one of our panelists at our Gold Medal Summit this year. So you all may have met Leah in person and heard a little bit about her story. So Leah, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you can provide a little bit of information about you and your background, and then we'll move on to our next panelist.
Yes, well, thank you so much. Hello, hello. I'm Lia Landaverde. I am a financial creator, the Latina Wealth Activist, and I'm also a founder of the Riqueza Collective, a financial education company for the people by the people, where we focus on this exact topic, personal finances and entrepreneurial finances. And I had the honor of, being in DC and speaking and meeting with some of you. And this is such an important topic, so I'm glad that y'all brought me back to continue this conversation. And I'm also based out of Dallas, Texas, just so
I was going to say,
if anyone's from Dallas.
We have a lot of Dallas students, so that's great. All right, Dana, you are up. So good. Thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to meet you all. I am Dana Donifrey. I am the founder of Ana Ono. We call ourselves chest inclusive lingerie. So we say 2 boobs, 1 boob, no boobs or new boobs. We're here to support you. And we help support patients from any breast or chest surgery, whether it's breast cancer related, a part of any reconstructive process, gender affirming and male top surgeries as well, into the life beyond. So we are based out of Philadelphia. I self-started my business 10 years ago. I'm also a 15-year breast cancer survivor, as I was diagnosed when I was 27. So excited to be here and to share with you all about how starting a business that is made out of a passion and necessity, but then growing it to being a global enterprise. So thank you for having me, and happy to, and give some wisdom away this evening.
Well, we're looking forward to that, Dana. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. And finally, Howard Sue, I think from Philadelphia. Are you? No, you are
Atlanta,
Atlanta,
Georgia.
Georgia. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, thank you so much. Howard Sue from Atlanta, Georgia. I am the CEO of Sue Hospitality, and we help manage small group of restaurants that I'm either a owner, partner owner, or founder in these restaurants at some level, pretty much investor slash owner in these restaurants. We've got everything from counter service to fine dining. One of our restaurants just got a Michelin star last year for the first time, so that was very exciting. We have a Peruvian concept, a fast casual Mexican burrito concept, a couple barbecue restaurants. That's where I'm at today. And what else? I mentioned the fine dining, and so yeah, so that's what I do. Grew up in the business, and kind of all I know. Didn't think I would do it when I finished college, but then I realized it was kind of in my DNA and also in my upbringing, and really enjoy the creativity part of it, the service aspect, and the connection and team building.
That's great. And so are your businesses all in the Atlanta area?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to have to provide a list to all of our young people that are in Atlanta or visiting, right? Because they should definitely check those out. Well, you are, this is great segue into our first question in talking about how we got here and what motivated us to become entrepreneurs. I think you mentioned it's in your DNA, and this was, something that you were meant to do. Can you tell us just a little bit, because there's a lot of risks involved, and not everybody feels like they can just come in that way, by, not having done this before, not really knowing all the pieces. What made you confident? What made you sort of cross that threshold initially to become an entrepreneur?
I think my parents both were business owners. They were immigrants into the United States, and of course, they had the good old grit and the American dream. But I honestly think that you can maybe have a little bit of information overload too at times when you're trying to start a business. A lot of my journey was like, let's just do it and figure it out. And I think I had the confidence because I grew up in the business, but I just also just believed in myself, if that makes sense. So that I tell people I like to jump off the cliff and then learn how to fly rather than the other way around. And that's just kind of my nature. I just feel like I'm a hands-on type person. So when I do that, it just kind of works for me. I don't necessarily think I have any special skill sets that are that much more unique to me than the next person. I really feel like anybody can run a business, but deep down they just got to have the desire and the grit to want to do it, because it is tough. It's hard, right? Whether it's managing people, dealing with clients, or just the day-to-day mundane administrative stuff. You got to figure it out, and it's all on you to keep that engine running, keep pushing your business, your organization forward. It's all going to be, at the end of the day, riding on you. So the harder you work, the more it will perform.
So we're hearing desire. We're hearing a lot about grit, confidence, and self-esteem. So those are all good messages. I'm going to turn back to Dana. Dana, what made you cross this threshold into starting your business? And I know you were sharing a little bit about your personal journey with this, but yes, you very clearly felt like you had a purpose in this.
Yeah, well, I mean, very similar to Howard, right? I feel like sometimes you're just you're born with this gene, whatever that gene is, to get out there and do something and make an impact far beyond, you know, the typical reach. But I also came from entrepreneurial parents and small business owner parents. So I think that was, you know, something I grew up was seeing how hard my parents were working and, you know, how their livelihood and their businesses were, you know, buying us new clothes or, you know, putting food on our table. And sometimes we had steak and sometimes we had meatloaf. You know, it really just depended on how good and successful they were in their own personal passions. But, you know, a lot of ways, you really have to follow your heart as well. I think that there is a reality to say that starting a business is a very difficult and tough thing to do. I was faced with a cancer diagnosis as a young adult. And I used to say that cancer was the hardest thing I've ever been through. I now say that running my business is the hardest thing I've ever done. Because it's not just about starting your business, it's about building your business and scaling your business and doing all of the pieces. You know, the beginning is quite fun. It's quite energizing and you're so excited. You're learning new things and you're discovering new things about yourself. But, you know, those days get increasingly more difficult just as your business grows, as you encounter new problems. So, you know, even Dave had said it earlier, you know, being constantly curious, I think is a huge attribute to being an entrepreneur, because this world is spinning so fast. Technology is moving so quickly. What you did yesterday is not what you're going to be doing tomorrow. And that really has a huge impact on who and what you may be as a person. And maybe you aren't those things, but then you're going to want to partner with somebody who is, right? I started my business all on my own, with my own finances, my own structure. Some people have co-founders, some people have multiple co-founders. Some people have friends and family that help them start a business. I didn't have access to those things growing up in a lower middle class home, and, you know, working since I was 12 years old to pay my own bills and to find my own things. So, you know, some of it can be taught and learned, but some of it is also who and what you want to be as a person. And I think too, like really truly being passionate about either the problem that you're solving or the business that you're creating. Because if you don't love it, if you can't go to sleep thinking about it and wake up in the morning thinking about it, you probably should do something else, because that's how much of a demand on your time and your energy it is to create, start, and build a business. So it's all very exciting and all of it can be done, but it takes a lot of hard work.
Well, we definitely heard some themes here. We're talking about passion and we're talking about impact, which are really big in our Congressional Award community. All of our young people are engaging in community service and giving back to the community, and they're all working in finding their passion and purpose through goal setting. So we love to hear that and following your heart. So also seeing that, you know, Dana and Howard both had entrepreneurial parents, small business owners. So I'm curious, Leah, whether that was your background as well.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about the same thing, and I was like, yeah, my parents are also entrepreneurs. And it's actually, you know, growing up, my parents are from El Salvador, so they're not from the United States, and it was the only opportunity they were really given. There wasn't really an option for them to, you know, have a 9 to 5, due to their status at that point. And entrepreneurship was the only thing that they could do. And they, you know, my dad did landscaping growing up, and he still has a landscaping company. But for me, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I saw all this scarcity and the stress being an entrepreneur had on my family, especially them not knowing English, them not knowing the system of the United States of how to run a business and who to go to. And so seeing their struggles actually pushed me away from entrepreneurship and pushed me more into pursuing a corporate, career. But I quickly realized, 4 years into my corporate career, that I now see why my parents did their own thing, right? Because there was something of more of a self-control, a self-passion, a grit, to do something that now you can control, right? Take control of your future. And so, watching my parents struggle, but also succeed multiple times. They've failed multiple times, but also came on top multiple times. And now in my journey, I'm 4 years into my business. I've, what Dana said is super true. The first year or so, you're feeling like really excited. You have all this energy. You're ready to conquer, and solve the problem, right, that your business is creating, because a business is really made to solve a problem that doesn't, have a solution, and maybe your solution is better. And so I learned about that. Yes, there were fears of fluctuation of like income, because as an entrepreneur, you really have to understand your money and your cash flow. That's one thing that I know not everyone has a finance degree, not everyone has, bookkeeping experience, but that's the one thing that has made sure that I'm okay, is understanding my cash flows, the in and out of my business. And even through the highs and lows, it wasn't easy, and it still isn't easy. I feel like I'm year 4, and I finally feel like I'm getting it together and understanding where I want to go and where I want to scale and how I want to scale. But it's funny how we all had entrepreneur parents and how we're also entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, risk ends up being in your DNA. It's in your culture.
Mhm.
It's in your home, right? You're seeing your parents do it. But you made a great point, which is that you saw the barriers to entry, and you saw what risks your parents were taking, and you thought, no, I'm gonna do a 9 to 5 job. I'm gonna have the stability.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go in the opposite direction. And then you start to realize, well, wait a minute, I kind of get it. I understand. Someone wrote in the chat, I really want to work for myself. And that sounds
Mhm.
good, but it might not always be that great. So,
I
um,
mean, yeah, the corporate experience that you learn helps you, I think, as well in your business, right? And everyone wants to be their own owner, but it takes, like I said, a lot of skill and a lot of grit and a lot of learning. You got to get vulnerable.
you got to get vulnerable 100%. So cash flow statements, you get really familiar with those, understand your cash flow. So those are some of the basic accounting principles that our young people may want to grasp and learn about as they're building a small business, which is great. Um, you talked a little bit about this, and I want to get an understanding from all of the council members about fulfilling a need. So with the Congressional Award program, we encourage young people often to seek out where needs exist in their communities and figure out how they can fill that gap and how they can serve. So this may be very similar to where you were as a small business owner and an entrepreneur. Did you see something that didn't exist that you felt like that needed to exist, and you had the skill sets and the passion to do it?
Yeah, essentially, the pandemic really opened my eyes in the sense that I was working at a top investment bank, and I saw the need of primarily the first gen Latina individuals in my family were struggling financially, due to COVID, due to the pandemic, and a lot of them were struggling to identify what to do next, and they were trying to pursue businesses. That's the only kind of result that they had, since a lot of their 9 to 5 jobs laid them off during that time. And so they would come to me as the one who has a master's, bachelor's in finance. They'd come to me and be like, okay, Leah, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Whether it's what's an LLC, what's an income statement, that the bank is asking me for this. And so I found myself serving a need, right? Serving a need for the community to find someone that they could trust, because most of the time, when we look at marginalized communities, they find it hard to trust somebody that doesn't look like them or doesn't represent their culture or doesn't represent their story. And so that is where I identified the need. I identified the need that my community needed someone that looked like them to solve this problem of literacy, of whether it's business or financial literacy. And I wasn't happy at my 9 to 5 anymore. I felt undervalued, and I decided to take that risk, right? I never thought I was going to take a risk, but I was like, this is the perfect time. It's the pandemic. Everybody's having their coming to Jesus moment, and I think this is mine. And that's when I decided to pivot because I saw a need from my own community.
Yeah, and you've been able to see the positive effects.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. Dana, I'm going to turn back to you. So Dana, it feels as though your business model and that idea didn't exist before. You stepped into a brand new space, and maybe one that not everybody was super comfortable with. How did you embrace that? How did you find your way and be bold, so to say?
Well, this is a great question, Erica. Thank you. I think that, something that we are addressing a lot in women's healthcare and women's well-being is a lot of these unspoken conversations that were sort of just brushed under the rug for multiple generations. I'm excited to see the future generations of females' health and well-being getting more comfortable and being a little bit braver to speak about a lot of these health conditions and things that we are addressing in our day-to-day lives, because they're normal and these things are happening. We just weren't talking about them. It's a very different thing. So, I had to really navigate a world that is mostly male dominated. So just a little bit of background. I self-funded my business for the first 5 years. Same, similar to Leah, I had a great career. I was able to save my money. I was able to use that for my startup funds, but mostly because men didn't actually see this being a problem for women that were facing breast cancer surgeries. And this meant that I didn't just have to explain why a different bra was necessary. I had to explain what was actually happening to people that were diagnosed with breast cancer. So what happened as a small business, I didn't become a product business. I became an educator because we weren't having conversations about what people were going through and why and how their bodies were changing in a very public and open way. And taking that responsibility on, not only as a young woman, but also as a young woman in a young business in a male dominated space, was really tough. It was really tricky. I had to find ways to speak about very sensitive subjects in a space and in an environment where people didn't kind of shrivel up and curl up and get the creepy jeebies because I'm talking about breast cancer. So you do eventually find your ways, and sometimes I was maybe a little bit braver than other times, but for me as a patient myself, going through all of these really damaging body changes, especially as a young adult, I was maybe naive enough to speak very openly and freely about them. And that opened up the door for other people to speak openly and freely about them. And now, if you're in the community or you're out in the space, you can, go onto Instagram or social media and get networked with people that are going through the same things that you're going through. But, I think even as I was fundraising, I got told time and time again, if this was a problem, somebody else would have already fixed it. If this was a business, somebody would have already done it. And, I just had a great meeting with one of my major competitors, and he said to me, "You've done something that nobody in this industry has been able to do in 40 years." And that was finally this moment to say, you know what, we are different. We are trying to impact lives in a different way, and we are going about it in a different way. And all of that is okay. It's been an uphill battle, but eventually you get there. Eventually the momentum starts. But, you have to believe in your concept and you have to believe in your mission. And if you do those things, the things that you say and the things that you do will not be wrong. People might view them as wrong, or they might disagree with you, but it doesn't make it wrong for you and for your business. So I just encourage others they see the problem, fix the problem, get out there and start speaking about it. Because, there's a lot of issues that we need addressed in today's society for women's healthcare and well-being.
Yep. And we have a lot of young people who do volunteer in that space, who are, maybe practicing and preparing for a career in that space or being advocates. So I think we have a lot of incredible participants that are really, really interested in what it is that you're doing, and even ways that, they may be able to support that. And,
yeah, well, keep up the good work. We need you.
And your vulnerability, by the way, is powerful. And I know that isn't easy. So I think, it connects us and helps us feel just connected and aligned with you. So that's also an amazing gift, and one that I want to point out to our students as well. Howard, I know that you are you have many businesses, it sounds like in there, but where did you find your lane? How did you know where to enter into the market? Where did you want to show up? Was it something that was lacking in your community or something you felt like you could do well, or was that a lot of data research? Where did you come up with this as where you wanted to enter the market in your profession?
Well, so because I have multiple restaurants, I think the question is, will this restaurant or will this concept, this type of restaurant work for the market that you've identified? So, and that can come in two directions. It can come from, all right, what does this neighborhood need, or what does this community need? You know, every community needs a coffee shop, right? So if there's no coffee shop, you should do a coffee shop, right? If there's anybody out there that is passionate about coffee or wants to get in or just start a business, that's a very easy thing to pay attention. So there's that approach, or if you have the idea and the idea is, hey, I really want to do a coffee shop, then you got to find the right market that will sustain your coffee shop, right? You don't want to go into a place that's got 5 coffee shops on the block. Or maybe you do because the density, demographics, and the traffic, the amount of people, maybe somewhere like New York City, 5 coffee shops actually is very minimal for a block, right? So there's that kind of approach. But from a high level of like, how did I approach my lane? You know, honestly, it's been an interesting journey. I've never really, I think at one point I wanted to dominate the planet, but now I realize just whatever opportunities come and they make sense, maybe I'll take advantage of them. So I think I'm a little bit more opportunistic, and I look for opportunities, and honestly, they have to just feel right. I think in my business, and a lot of business actually, but my business, there's a lot of the science side of all right, can the numbers work? Is this the right neighborhood? How many seats? Blah blah blah. But then there's a huge artistic side, right? What kind of paper am I going to print the menu on? Am I going to make this barbecue sauce sweet or spicy? I mean, should I play hip hop on Friday nights, or should I play classic rock on Saturday nights? I mean, there's all these questions of like, what should the staff uniform be? And what kind of water glass should they be drinking out of? So there's this whole side of like, what will resonate with my market? And that's a very important, I guess, approach to my business. And I think I'm good at understanding both sides. And your original question of how did I kind of choose that lane? Well, I'm passionate about, as Anna had mentioned, or Dana, I'm sorry, had mentioned earlier, you have to be passionate. It's exciting in the beginning. And so if you have this idea and you just can't, it just won't go away. It's like something's calling you to make it happen, right? So in my business, you hear a lot of people, they not necessarily say, oh, I have a restaurant idea or whatever, but they say I have a concept, right? And so that concept is either a pizza place where people are making the pizza in front of you, or it's a Asian barbecue grill and it's sports themed or whatever. So there's all these concepts. So I have a lot of like ideas, and chefs usually have very creative, a lot of ideas. So for us, that's kind of, for me anyway, that's kind of how I have led with my decision making for the conceptualization and the startup process of my restaurants and businesses.
And so you made the decision, I would take it you started with one, and how many do you have now?
Right now we have 6.
6.
But yeah, and some of them we've sold off. So over my career, the past 20 plus years, I've had about 9 to 10 restaurants.
And so what we have read, or I've read, that's a very tough business, right? To own restaurants. You may say
It's a piece of cake.
it's easy. It's
Yeah.
easy.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it is a lot of work. I mean, it's for the most part, it's probably 7 days a week, 15-hour days, and you're dealing with so so many people at every level, whether it's the guests or the staff. So the human component is very important, and
Mm.
you have to really be a good leader and a good manager to in the restaurant business to so.
To get there. A
Mhm.
lot of young people in the chat are asking about challenges. So I do want to throw this out to our panelists. You mentioned a concept. So we start with a concept. I think a lot of us have a concept, something that is in our minds. We're sleeping it, we're dreaming it, we're waking up to it, and we're passionate about it. So once you have a concept, in taking that concept and going into reality and making it come true, can you speak to a challenge that you either had to face or continue facing, and how you were able to conquer that or address it?
Um,
It's probably not just one.
yeah, it's in my world. Um, there's just not one restaurant. Okay, so running a restaurant is not a big deal. A million little deals, right? That's going on all the time. And you just have to stay in front of them and stay and be able to see all the little things before they become big issues, right? It's a lot like life. But when you have multiple restaurants or businesses, one could be having personnel issues, the other could be having uh, call it structural issues, plumbing. If let's say the HVAC is not working and all of a sudden it's leaking over 4 of your tables, condensation pipe, so you got to address that. The other one could be, hey, where sales are slow, what's going on? And you're like, all right, we need to do some events, we need to do some marketing, we need to do some social media. So it could be marketing, and of course it could also be just cash flow. So I think for I mean for me, and I know for any business owner out here, I think you're very lucky if you could say 30% of your time is actually working on growing the business, right? Like hopefully. But mostly it's probably pretty accurate. 70% of your time is actually putting out issues and managing and problem solving. So you need to have that ability to say, all right, this is what I do. Don't let it discourage you, and be able to say, all right, what's the next challenge? What's the next problem? And be fortunate of these problems, because you want every day to be a learning lesson, right? And every week to be something new. And you know, you hear it, quite often. What is the saying goes? Growing pains, right? Well, I might be doing $10 million a year right now in revenue, and that's great or not so good, depending on how you want to look at it. But if we double that, right? Anything by double is going to be good, but you're going to have so many more new problems that you didn't think about. It's not necessarily going to be easier, right? Your company might be financially in a better place, but not necessarily. It actually might be thinner margins, right? You might be managing a lot of things that you didn't expect to manage. But my point is this: is that ultimately you have to be in that seat to understand that you have to lead and push the company forward, and be willing to problem solve on a daily basis, and be and hopefully you manage those problems and put systems or controllables in place, that those systems become self-managed per se through standardization and processes and policies. So then you can focus hopefully more than 30% of your bandwidth and energy on that exciting, how do I roll out a new bra? How do I roll out a new menu? Or how do I open my 5th barbecue location? Or how do I redesign this menu? And just, new branding, a new t-shirt, the fun stuff that you, as an entrepreneur, that led you to be creative, to put something and take it to market. Hopefully you can continue doing that, because the company will depend on you to do both. So be ready to be a problem solver, but also lead with the idea and the vision of what you want that company to be.
Right. You're in the captain's chair. You got to be ready for all the swiveling that comes with that. That makes a lot of sense. Leah, what about you in your challenges from concept to where you are 4 years in? Can you speak to overcoming a challenge that maybe comes to the top of your mind?
Yeah, I'm well, also looking at the chat and what the students want to learn. When you're kicking off a business, a lot of them were asking, well, how do I make money? How do I get capital? Right. To be honest, when I started Riqueza, I had $47 in that business bank account. That's what I used to open my business bank account.
$47?
Yes,
$47.
$47.
Wow. Okay.
$47. That's what I used to start with. I bought a domain and I used social media to my benefit to tell my story. A lot of new age, especially Gen Z, we have the ability to use social media to our advantage to sell our business, to sell our concept, our product, our service, and tell our story. you know as a business owner, you have this idea, right? And you're like, okay, well, how I'm going to make money? Well, obviously you have to kind of start selling yourself, whether it's, when I started out, I remember I started out as a coach and I would charge, I was a financial coach first, and I would charge, I think, like $25 to $50 per a 30-minute to an hour session with an individual. That's where I started, right? Just to make some income. Eventually, I made my first $300. Someone needed help with setting up their QuickBooks, and I would charge $100. Or someone would ask me, "Hey, Leah, I need help with, understanding what bookkeeping is," and then I would charge another, amount here. And eventually, I figured out what my service is, what I really wanted to offer, and hone in on what that value was. And because at first you're not really going to know. I mean, as a service business, it's hard to define your value at first when you're kicking off, right? And you have a lot of imposter syndrome. And like I said, I self-promoted in the very beginning. I self-funded my business from the very beginning. And again, with time, I learned what I wasn't good at, what I failed at, and what was a learning lesson, and I had to let it go, because a lot of you have a lot of great business ideas, but is there another competitor in the market, right? Do your SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, because you might have an idea that already exists. So how either you want to be maybe a part of that company, or how can you support that idea, or how can you do it better, right? And when it comes to the funding, like I said, I self-promoted myself to, build up. Eventually I started making 4,000 a month, and then from like 100 to 4,000 over a few months. And then it eventually became, a six-figure year and so forth. And so it took time. I mean, it's not something that you like make money instantly in a month. But one thing, there is a lot of resources, grants, for small businesses, especially women-owned businesses, marginalized businesses, queer-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. There's a lot of support out there. So, I mean, the first step is obviously kicking off with that LLC and making sure it's registered. But, if I would have known about grants that could help me sooner, I would have done that in my first year of business, because usually you need to be in business a year. You need to be able to show that you have something, a product or service that's desirable to the community. And then obviously the grant is where you kind of pitch yourself, right? Pitch your idea, pitch your concept, and that can help kick off your journey as a small business owner, right? A lot of people do friends and family. Hey, I'm starting a business. I would love some help and support. Any money goes a long way. I remember one of my friends gave me $25. I mean, I took that $25 proudly, because, any support is any support that you can receive. And so when I think about those obstacles and challenges of that cash flow, that money, right? The money is the main problem here that we face as entrepreneurs, is being really patient and being resourceful, right? I think in Spanish, in my culture, we use this word called trucha, and it's almost like ponte las pilas, which equates to like getting ready, like being active, being on your toes, and just trying to put yourself out there to gain income, to gain exposure, whatever you need to do in order to put yourself out there. Because as a business owner, you don't just succeed just by having a business. You succeed by persevering, putting yourself out there, pitching, applying to grants, being resourceful, changing your concept. If the first concept, it doesn't work, that's okay. We're allowed to fail. We're allowed to pivot. I've pivoted multiple times in my business. My business is not the same business I started with. And so being allowed to accept those lessons and learn, and also accept help from mentors. I mean, you have a whole Intuit financial education for personal and business resources that you could just take those classes for free, that could benefit you, as well as finding other mentors. Like, I have a whole community where we do financial workshops. We have a workshop tomorrow about how to get an internship in college and all these stuff, because again, there's a lot of resources out there. It's just putting yourself in these, you know, places to accept help, because as a small business owner, sometimes we don't want to, because we feel like we can do it all, right? But there are people out there willing to help us and mentor and guide. But you know, you have to have that grit, you have to have that perseverance, especially when you're trying to conquer those obstacles of cash flow, scaling, building a team, branding, marketing. And like I said, Gen Z, you guys got social media in the bag. Like, you know, if I think about 5 years ago, even 4 years ago when I started my business, I was so scared of posting my business online, but look at where we are now.
Now you're an influencer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I follow you. So Dana's shaking her head as you were speaking, and you touched upon a lot of really great things. And when we finish this conversation about challenges, I just want to end with some of the financial tools that you feel like you really need to know, so that our young people can walk away knowing, you know, where they should focus some of their education right now, what's important. But I heard grants, which, by the way, we will link to some of the small business grant opportunities, because some of you are asking right away, as soon as the word grant was mentioned, where are these grants? Where are they? Where can I find them? Mentors, the SWOT analysis and the research, the LLC registration. We could talk hours about imposter syndrome, so I'd love that you mentioned that as well. But I want to go to Dana, because Dana, from what I understand, you were self-funded from the beginning, right? So I can imagine a lot of challenges coming with that. But tell me, what would you share with this group in terms of overcoming a key challenge?
Yeah, I mean, well, I could listen to Leah for hours. She's so good with all of the information she just gave to you all. I can check off all of those things. And I think, you know, I've seen several people in the chat talking about product businesses, consumer businesses, creatives. I think that the good and the bad about being a creative is that we love to create, and we will do that at any cost, right? So that is a benefit that is in our soul anyways. But when you create a consumer product business, a lot of people will call them a CPG business. When you're creating a product-driven business, running your finances becomes the most important piece of your business. And it's because we do not rely on ourselves. We rely on the goods of which we purchase in order to resell. And the problem with starting consumer businesses is that if you are growing, if you are scaling, it is a major cash demand. And it is one of the most difficult businesses to build when you do not have financing. Because if you buy something for $50, you sell it for $100, and the next time you're going to sell 5 of those, but you only just made $50, you have to fund all of that balance to buy your next set of product so you can sell more to make more. Right? So you have to constantly be looking at your cash flow, not in the immediate, like, I just gave you a service, you just paid me $1,000, this is great. It's like, I just got $1,000, but I need 10. So where do I find 9? Because I can only sell 1,000 to make 1,000 so many times if I'm not planning 3, 6, 9, 12 months in advance. So it becomes a very cash demanding business. It is the hardest thing about running this business. I saw a few people talk about their Etsy's. I started on Etsy. Right. And that was the kickoff, because nobody was buying on e-commerce back then. I think, you know, it's great. You guys do have social media in your pocket, but every young person I speak to as well, I say, what are you going to do when social media goes away? Because you also have to have a plan B. You cannot rely on any channel to be your sole provider of your business. So if you have 100% coming from your Instagram profile, what happens if that disappears overnight? Where did you diversify? Where are you finding other customers? How are you engaging with other customers? You know, just to kind of put it into perspective, I get less than 10% of my annual revenue from my social media channel. we look great on social. Everybody loves us for social, but that is not my main revenue maker, right? So you got to kind of like say, like, where's your audience? Where's your community? Where's your shopper? How are you going to engage with that? I echo the grants. Ana Ono was a small business big game contestant winner from Intuit. I received, I believe, $10,000. We also won a FedEx small business grant, was also around a $10,000 grant. I received funding. I took out personal loans. I budgeted with my salary, my life bills, and what I needed to pay my rent, to pay my gas, to pay my food. And every penny I had that I did not need to make sure I didn't lose my apartment went into me starting my business. So for 5 years, I took my own personal income, my own personal salary, and that was my budget to scale and grow my business, was how much money I could roll in from my salary. I did that for 5 years. I put everything I owned on the line in order to build my business because I didn't have friends and family that had money to give to me. I had to completely make it myself. So when you're out there and you're grinding and you're finding the funds, and I've seen people say, well, where do I find these? You just got to be tapped in. You got to get out and network. You got to go meet other business owners, find mentors in the space, find young entrepreneurs. I hear over and over in the chat, what if people aren't taking me seriously? I'm not old enough. I heard that all the time when I was starting my business at 27. So you just have to get up there, be professional, learn from more mature or, other mentors in the space and tell them, be like, how do I talk? What do I say? Ask these questions. These are not bad questions. They want to help you. So I think it's just important. You got to put yourself out there and go and try to grab what you can.
Well, I think a lot of this comes down to communication, right?
Yeah.
We want our young people to, you have to be able to have a pitch. You have to be able to have a really, tight narrative around what it is you're asking for and why. And, if you're getting an investor or if you're, trying to get customers, I think all of that really matters. So we really promote good, solid communication, oral, written, it all matters, right?
Yeah. Pinch
Thank you.
yourself also matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brush your hair, brush your teeth,
Yeah.
show up, look good.
That's right. Howard or Leah, any final thoughts just around, managing your money? We have all these great Intuit for Education tools and Congressional Award of financial literacy tools, things that, if you were high school or college on the financial side and financial tools side, what would you be honed in on? What would you want to make sure that you were researching and learning? We talked about cash flow statements a little bit. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Leah, go ahead. You can start.
Well, money is inevitable. The younger you learn, the better you will be off in your life, whether personally or in business. We can't ignore the fact that money is what makes the world go round. It's what makes, we have to negotiate for salaries or negotiate for business deals. And so the sooner you start learning, I know it feels boring. I know it feels overwhelming. But just take it little by little. And especially through experience, you'll be able to adapt to the language, adapt to the knowledge. Like, how I speak now was not how I spoke 10 years ago when I first even started my, career in the finance industry. I remember I used to look at people and be like, wow, the way they speak, the way that they hold themselves together, I wish I could be like that. And with time, eventually you get to a place where you start learning and adapting. And so find community, lean on your community, whether it's in your school, whether you go to the clubs at the closest college near you, or even leverage the Congressional Awards network, or us at Intuit. We're part of the Small Business Council here at Intuit. Leverage us, follow, Dana's business, follow Howard and all his restaurants, see what they're doing, learn from what's out there and see how you can apply it to your business. Because again, knowledge is there, knowledge is accessible, but just you have to be able to apply it. And that's why, I do the work that I do, because the younger you learn money, the better off you'll be in your career and your business.
Yes, hard to follow after Dana and Leah here. But absolutely, I think it's highly important. I'm 49 and I will say that I probably got a little bit more financially literate in the past 10 years. When I started my business, I wasn't that financially literate. Now, what was very important to me was how much money is in the bank account. Is it growing or is it diminishing? And as long as it's growing, I think you're, for the most part, pretty safe. But I say that because, you know, do know, do have a good, strong, and a decent understanding of cash flow statements, P&Ls, finance, interests, be able to, you know, have a conversation with a bank, a lender, but don't get overwhelmed with like too many of the details, right? You're an entrepreneur, you're going to be a business person. You need to be able to just be able to understand that, you know, have financial literacy, but you don't necessarily need to be an expert because you're going to need to be able to find those experts. You need to be able to trust your instincts and what you've learned to have the conversation like, is this a good bookkeeper? Is this a good accountant? A good CPA? And you're going to have to trust your instincts to and know at least that they're good, you know. And just because they have a certification doesn't necessarily mean they're not scattered-brained or, you know, can manage their own business. So you need to just understand that these people, whoever you hire, are your partners, and be able to trust your own instincts on a lot of that. What I really think, you know, I think there was a guy out there on these little texts, maybe it's Ishmael Kosar, and his little bubbles came up and it was like, I want to know when's a good time to take a risk. Well, to me, you know, the best time is when you're young. If you don't have children, you don't have a mortgage, go for it. That's the best time, right? Like literally, you have nothing kind of to worry about. And, you know, I like to think, what can be my worst case scenario? And I don't mean like, you know, the world gets invaded or whatever, that type of thing. I mean like, all right, if I take 20 grand today and I totally go invest in this business idea, what's my worst case scenario? Well, you lose 20 grand, right? Or did you sign a lease for 10 years and now you're committed to 10-year lease and you lost 20 grand? So think about it that way so that you can pursue it. And that's that right there in itself is so much financial literacy that you're like planning ahead, right? So to me, since we're talking to young entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs, the best time to go get it is right now because you can take the risk. It's going to be so much harder when you have a mortgage, right? When you have children, you have a wife, you have a car, you have home debt. I love what Dana said earlier. And that is probably the most disciplined thing you can do is look at what you can shed in your own personal life. Can you not buy that latte every morning, right, from Starbucks, right? Can you shed that out of your world? And just whatever you can shed out of your personal world, everything excess becomes your strength financially that you can invest. Pair that with a grant, pair that with a loan, pair that with friends and family, and all of a sudden you're going to be very strong financially that you should be able to like run your business. And also you're just disciplining yourself. You're prioritizing your future first and putting yourself in a position where you know where to invest, right? And that is going to be something that you're going to have to deal with every day. Is this the right investment, right? I have no choice but to invest in a walk-in cooler if it breaks and it costs me 10 grand. I have to invest. Even though it's an expense, I have to invest. So it's going to throw my budget line way out of whack, but because I have to do it, well, I have to do it to keep the business going. But then at the same time, you're going to find a great opportunity that comes up and you're like, wow, this client wants me to, well, I'll use Dana's example the best, produce $3,000 bras, but I don't have the cash. But if you had disciplined yourself enough early, you might just have that cash, or at least enough to go to an investor or a bank for the down payment, 20%, or even 10% because you have great credit, and bang, you can go fulfill that 3,000 order for bras. So in short, save your money.
In short, save your money. Well said. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we ran over a little bit here, and we could probably speak easily for another hour. I think we had so many really wonderful takeaways. I want to thank you all, Dana, Howard, Leah, for your time, for sharing your expertise with us. I know we have many young people who are inspired by your stories and are thankful and appreciative for the information and the knowledge that you shared today. I want to remind folks that January 21st, we will have a follow-up where we'll demo what Intuit is providing by way of financial literacy and tools and the Congressional Award module. So you'll be getting more information on that, and maybe we can speak to some of these other questions as well. So thank you all. I hope that you all have a wonderful evening. I want to thank our Congressional Award participants and everyone who was able to join us today. And a really heartfelt thank you to Intuit as our financial literacy partner and an organization that is really helping us prepare our next generation of leaders. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Thank you for having
Happy
us.
holidays.
Thank you.
Bye.